Coca Cola, a world-renowned business that has reached every corner of the earth. Founded in 1892, the company is now worth in excess of $100 billion and takes an annual revenue of around $50 billion. It is a global empire that began life as a medicinal carbonated beverage containing cocaine and caffeine. Over the decades, our addiction to sugar and sugary drinks has skyrocketed. Coca Cola was in the money. They had the American people hooked on its products and spent millions on its brand image and advertisements. But in 2015, the multi-billion-dollar empire nearly came crashing down when it was discovered they funded research into the detrimental effects of a sugary diet on human health. Not only did they fund this research, but they also swayed it to portray a different picture to the world, co-forming an organization called the Global Energy Balance Network and buying the loyalty of top scientists. They diverted attention away from poor diet and instead focused on promoting exercise as a means to tackle obesity. It was an irresponsible thing to do, but it was the only way forward for the Coca-Cola company. Let's start at the beginning. The story of Coca-Cola's rise to the hugely impressive company it is today is a fascinating one. Its success is largely down to the brand's image. The unique cola bottle designed in 1916 and its timeless font made it stand out from the crowd. The company printed posters, leaflets, and flyers for its retailers. They gave away free branded items such as calendars and clocks, all completely unrelated to the drink itself. The image of Coca-Cola was everywhere you looked, and soon began to make it across the far reaches of the world. They marketed the drink as a premium product that should be treated as such. Salesmen insisted retailers kept the bottles at 36 degrees Fahrenheit and never more than 40 degrees. This gave the product an air of superiority about it. For 70 years, they fixed the consumer price at just 5 cents a bottle, making it available to everyone. And most importantly, they never changed the formula to cater for regional markets across the world. These were just some of the tactics that Coca-Cola's founder, John Pemberton, main shareholder, Asa Griggs Candler, and subsequent owner, Ernest Woodruff, deployed to make Coca-Cola a success. Now, more than 1.9 billion servings of Coca-Cola are drunk every day across more than 200 countries worldwide. But over recent decades, health officials have raised serious concerns over the well-being of Americans and those in other Western countries. In 2020, 42% of the American population were classed as obese, and many more overweight. Almost 15 million children and adolescents in the United States are obese. Obesity-related conditions such as type 2 diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and certain cancers are on the rise. In children, joint problems, sleep apnea, and asthma are also connected to being overweight and add to the list of linked health problems. As a result, the medical cost of obesity in America was estimated at more than $170 billion in 2017. As the years ticked by, the problem and its costs were rising. As the message started to trickle through to the public that sugary drinks were, in fact, incredibly bad for them, people began to make the necessary changes to their lifestyles. In the past 20 years, consumption of full-calorie sodas by the average American has dropped by 25%. The government are also pushing back on companies like Coca-Cola. They have introduced a tax on sugary drinks. Certain advertisements have been banned, and some products removed from schools. Coca-Cola was losing revenue. They needed to do something. In 2014, the company gave $1.5 million to the creation of a nonprofit organization called the Global Energy Balance Network. The aim of this network was to promote the idea that a lack of exercise, not poor diet, was causing obesity. It focused on funding scientific research that was aligned with the message they wanted to portray to the public. Leading scientists from around the world were funded by Coca-Cola through this network. The message they were promoting was a dangerous one. The research findings suggested that sugary drinks could still be consumed as long as an individual engaged in regular physical activity. They steered the public away from thinking that Coke could lead to obesity and its associated diseases. But if word got out that the research was funded by Coca-Cola, then the public would realize it was biased. In a bid to conceal their involvement, Coca-Cola withheld information on the funding that they provided. They tried to obscure their relationship with researchers, hiding it from public view. The funding Coca Cola provided was instrumental in advancing the careers of many academics and building their public health and medical institutions, but it wasn't necessarily the right thing to do. Fortunately, it didn't take long before the scientific community, at least those that weren't funded by the commercial giant, to realize that the global energy balance network was heavily funded by Coca Cola. The research outcomes just weren't making sense to those who were devoted to nutritional scientific research. As some of those scientists said, you cannot exercise your way out of overeating. Just 1 year later, in 2015, the network was disbanded after the revelations became public. Coca-Cola's chief health and science officer, Rona Applebaum, retired, and the company cut all ties with the global energy balance network. Coca-Cola took a hit from this negative exposure. The scandal made headlines across the world, and the company was at risk of being deemed untrustworthy by its consumers. What had begun as an attempt to promote its products, in the end, had the opposite effect. In a bid to be more transparent, CEO Muhtar Kent released figures on Coca-Cola's recent spending. Over the course of 5 years, the company spent almost $120 million on research and new partnerships. Of that, $22 million went to scientific research and $97 million to support health and well-being partnerships. And if you look at the major receivers of this funding, you can see why concerns were raised. The list includes the American Cancer Society, the American Diabetic Association, and the American College of Cardiology. As well as top medical institutions, Coca-Cola also funded athletic associations such as the National Recreation and Park Association, Boys and Girls Clubs of America Triple Play Program, and Girl Scouts of the USA. Having an influence over so many organizations and areas of research gave Coca-Cola the ability to promote the findings that were favorable to them and reject those that weren't. They controlled the data to work it in their favor. But Coca-Cola isn't alone in this. Many companies who sponsor research often publish the favorable results. This is certainly true of the pharmaceutical industry, but even more so for the beverage industry. David Ludwig, who worked at the Children's Hospital in Boston, analyzed hundreds of scientific papers focused on the health effects of soft drinks, fruit juice, and milk. Of those that were financially backed by the industry, the scientific results were favorable to the company and/or the industry itself. In fact, they were 7 times more likely to produce a favorable result. This isn't necessarily surprising, and academics may not be intentionally biasing the research. It could be a case of the industry partner only publishing the results that promote them in a positive light. They may have decided not to publicize any negative results, and because they have funded the research, then they are entitled to do this. Furthermore, if a study finds a slightly positive result, which may otherwise be overlooked by the scientific community, and it has the potential to drive profits for the commercial partner, then they may promote this as a positive factor, however small that result may be. Marion Nestle, a professor in food politics at New York University, said that this funding buys loyalty. Those receiving the money to further their research and their careers are hardly going to be critical of the company paying them. It is a way of silencing the critics and gain support for the company by respected members of the scientific community and beyond. But there are wider consequences to this practice. Governments often base their policies on scientific findings. In the case of the Coca Cola scandal, there was no way the government was going to change its nutritional policies to penalize Coke and other carbonated soft drinks when the scientific data didn't paint those products in a negative light. It seems that the Global Energy Balance Network even managed to pull the wool over the government's eyes. A word of caution: next time we as consumers hear a piece of compelling scientific research related to our well-being, we would do well to find out exactly who is funding that research.